My name is Dr. Raoul McLaughlin. My subject is trade beyond the imperial frontiers. I have published several books on this subject. This lecture is based on a paper I published in the academic journal Classics Ireland. This is part 3 of a lecture on the Emperor Claudius and the Sinhalese king. The question is, did Sinhalese envoys threaten Rome? In about AD 50, the Emperor Claudius received a Sinhalese embassy from the Andrapura realm. This Buddhist kingdom ruled the island of Sri Lanka, which was known to the Greeks and Romans as Taprobane. At this time, this was the most distant political contact that had occurred in the ancient world. Consequently, the information that these ambassadors conveyed about the distant East had a significant impact on Roman world perceptions. It also encouraged certain hidden political agendas in Rome. Pliny the Elder describes how the embassy provided new information. He begins his updated account of ancient Sri Lanka with the comment, "From the embassy we learnt the following facts about Taprobane. It contains 500 towns, and a harbour facing south, adjacent to the town of Palasimdus, which is the most famous of all the places in the island, and a royal residence, with a population of 200,000. During the 1st century AD, Rome was the largest city in the ancient world, with a population of about 1 million people, including about 200,000 citizens eligible for the free grain dole. In total, there were probably about 6 cities in the Roman Empire that had a population greater than 200,000. Rome, Alexandria, Antioch, Carthage, Ephesus, and Pergamum. And only one city in the Parthian Empire, Seleucia. Pliny reports that the Mediterranean island of Sicily had 63 cities. So ancient Sri Lanka would have been considered populous and well urbanized by Roman standards. The Romans and Sinhalese probably had different concepts of what constituted a town or city, but the figures suggest that Taprobane was considered a large urbanized realm. Pliny also provides new information on the geography of Sri Lanka that may have been supplied by the envoys. The island had 2 large rivers which flowed from an inland marsh. The closest location on the Indian coast was Cape Comorin, which was 4 days sailing from the island. Pliny describes the coral reefs in this sea as thickets of trees growing beneath the water that are brushed by the rudders of passing vessels. But the most problematic issue in Pliny's description of Sri Lanka is his estimated size of the island. Pliny reports, "The envoys told us that the side of their island facing towards India is 1,250 miles long and lies southeast of India, that beyond the Himalayas they also face towards the country of the Seres, silk people, Chinese, who are known to them by trade contacts." In reality, the Andrapura kingdom, which ruled ancient Sri Lanka, occupied just over 25,000 square miles of territory, which is an area about 2.5 times the size of Sicily. Sri Lanka is about 270 miles from north to south, and 140 miles across at its widest extent. Its entire coastline is just over 830 miles in circuit, which is significantly smaller than the Roman figure of 1,250 miles for the coastline facing towards India. A Vedic paradesa measured about 110 feet. A Roman mile was about 4,800 feet long, and the Greek stadia used in northern India measured about 600 feet. Perhaps the envoys gave the dimensions of their homeland in stadia, believing this to be the measurement used by Mediterranean civilization. Consequently, the Romans could have assumed the stadia figure to represent miles. Pliny also provides information on the appearance of the Sinhalese king, reporting that the king of Taprobane wears the costume of Father Liber, while other people wear Arabian-style clothing. This mention of Father Liber is significant. Images of Buddhist holy men from the Indus region depict figures in plain robes, similar to the Greek himation or unadorned toga. Buddhist chronicles also contain stories of early Sinhalese kings disguising themselves by dressing as subjects and working as agricultural labourers. This idea was probably inspired by accounts of how the Gautama Buddha escaped his family's palace to learn about life outside the royal compound. The great-grandfather of the Sinhalese king who sent envoys to Claudius was said to have worked at both the rice harvest and a sugar mill. Perhaps a version of these events inspired the Father Liber description received by Pliny. Father Liber, the Free Father, was an ancient Italian cult deity associated with Bacchus, Greek Dionysus. Bacchus was the god of wine and viniculture, who was said to have conquered India in the distant past. In Roman society, Liber was seen as a patron god of the plebeians, who were the mass of undistinguished Roman citizens. During the Republican period, the Senate identified Bacchanalia mystery cults as a threat to the Roman state. A senatorial decree, dated to 186 BC, criminalized secret societies and outlined unique measures taken against their organization, including the appointment of investigators and the rewarding of informants. The cults were suppressed, although worship of Bacchus continued into the imperial era, when it became a regulated part of Roman religion. The Free Father idea was therefore considered to be something ancient and subversive. Pliny's description could have had other significance. While he was in exile in Thomas, Ovid wrote an account of the Latin festival which celebrated Father Liber on the 17th of March. During Liberalia, it was customary for Roman youths aged about 14 to receive the toga of manhood in a private ceremony before their household gods. They were then escorted by their family and friends to the Forum and the Capitoline, where they made sacrifices to the gods and registered to be full citizens at the records office. Two military diplomas dated to about AD 70 mention a statue of Liber Pater on the Capitoline. So perhaps these cult ceremonies were centered at this location. In his commentary on the Liberalia, Ovid calls the ordinary white toga worn by Roman youths the toga libera, rather than the toga virilis. He addresses Father Liber to ask why the first toga should bear his name, and speculates, "Is it because you are a father, and fathers entrust their beloved sons to your care and power? Or because you are the liberator, the vestment of liberty is assumed, and the path of a freer life begun with your help?" The all-white toga could be worn by those members of the Senate who did not hold ongoing imperial office, possess enhanced familial rank, or celebrate former high honours. Therefore, an elected monarch who dressed in the toga of Father Liber did not visually distinguish himself from the ordinary citizen. This was in stark contrast to the Emperor Caligula, who Suetonius says dressed in Chinese silks, wore effeminate robes, and carried the emblems of the gods, including the lightning bolt of Jupiter, the trident of Neptune, and the staff of Hermes. The Andhra kingdom was a well-established hereditary monarchy, with an autocratic male presiding over the royal court. Kingship was generally passed down from the eldest to the younger brother, unless circumstances favoured the son of a former ruler. However, this does not match the account of Sinhalese government offered by Pliny the Elder, who describes an elected kingship on the island. Pliny reports, "The king was elected by the people on the basis of age, gentleness of disposition, and as having no children. If he afterwards has a child, he is deposed to prevent the monarchy from becoming hereditary. Pliny suggests that other aspects of Sinhalese government were radical by Roman standards. He reports, "They told us that 30 governors were assigned to the king by the people, and capital punishment could only be inflicted by a majority vote. Even then, there was a right of appeal to the people, and a jury of 70 members is appointed to try the case. If the jury acquits the accused, then the 30 governors are no longer held in any esteem, and they are utterly disgraced." The Roman account could be based on Buddhist practices attested in an ancient text called the Mahavamsa. There were occasions in the history of Sri Lanka when Buddhist councils took part in discussions concerning who would ascend the throne. This occurred after the death of King Sadatista in the 1st century BC, when a specially convened political and religious council chose a younger son of the former king to rule in place of his elder brother. But other explanations are possible, and Roman opposition to imperial rule might have influenced Pliny's account of the Sinhalese. An example of overt political opposition to the emperors is provided by Josephus when he describes a Senate meeting convened after the death of Caligula in AD 41. On this occasion, the Senate proposed regaining their authority, and a leading senator spoke to condemn the Principate as a system that encouraged flattery and slavish fear, and leaves the public administration not to be governed by wise laws, but by the character of those that govern. In this view, the tyrannical Principate was sustained by inaction and timorous forbearance of contradicting the emperor's will. The Roman account of Sri Lanka presents similar issues when it outlines how a government might depose a monarch through widespread resistance. Pliny reports, "If the king committed a delinquency, he was punished by being condemned to death. Nobody executed the sentence, but the whole of the people turned their backs on him and refused to have any communication with him or even speak to him." The episode demonstrated how the authority of emperors could be negated by passive defiance, and these ideas possibly gained popularity during the reign of the Emperor Nero. Under Nero, a leading senator named Claudius Thrasea Paetus apparently opposed the Principate by non-compliance. Tacitus describes Thrasea as someone who regarded senatorial freedom to be a necessity to the state, and believed the Senate should maintain its interest in great affairs. This was an era when the Senate generally approved imperial demands and awarded excessive honours to the autocratic emperors. In AD 59, Nero justified the killing of his mother to the Senate, and asked the usually compliant senators to denounce her memory by declaring her birthday ill-omened. In protest, Thrasea walked out of the Senate house without stating an opinion or opposing the motion. Thrasea offered no public dissension that could be exploited by his political enemies, and in AD 63 he withdrew from all senatorial business, refusing to defend charges of neglecting his imperial duties. The account of how the Sinhalese deposed their monarchs would also have had resonance for Romans familiar with the fate of the Emperor Nero. When news of provincial uprisings reached Rome, and some leading army officers refused to obey the emperor's commands, Nero was abandoned by his courtiers, advisers, and guards. Awaking during the night, he found the palace deserted, and when his political allies ignored his urgent summons, Nero fled into the countryside. Wrongly assuming that the Senate had authorized his death, Nero ordered a slave to assist him in suicide. It seems that the Sinhalese did not leave Roman government with an accurate account of their kingdom, but this does not mean that the diplomatic encounter was a failure. The arrival of the envoys revealed to Roman merchants the possibility of reaching Sri Lanka and establishing direct trade contacts with a regime that was rich in commercial products. The value of this trade is suggested by the Corium coin hoard, which was found in a sand dune on the Malabar coast of southwest India. The hoard contained about 8,000 gold aurei, found in a bronze container that may have been stashed by shipwrecked Roman merchants. The latest coins in the hoard were minted under Nero, suggesting a disposition date in the AD 60s. This could have been the coin consignment carried by a single Roman trade expedition, and it represented enough wealth to pay the annual wages of 6,000 legionaries. A Roman merchant guide called the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea reveals how Roman merchants established commercial networks with foreign kingdoms. Roman traders supplied goods to royal courts in the Indus region and central India. They probably followed this practice with the Sinhalese regime, and Roman trade periploi, written after the diplomatic contact, would have informed business colleagues in Egypt about the politics, society, conflicts, and trade opportunities to be found in Sri Lanka. These details do not appear in the writings of the Roman ruling class, but ancient geographers used these periploi to create detailed world maps. In the mid-2nd century AD, Claudius Ptolemy used information gathered from later trade periploi to map Roman knowledge of the Far East. His data reveals how Roman captains began sailing directly to Sri Lanka from southern Arabia, following the 14-day ocean course discovered by the freedman. On these voyages, Roman pilots plotted the position of over 1,300 islets and 19 atolls in the seas below India. These probably correspond to the 17 coral reefs recognized as islands in modern times. Ptolemy records that Roman ships visited Sinhalese ports to acquire rice, honey, ginger, beryls, and purple amethyst gemstones. But they also began sailing around the island to reach trade centres on the east coast of India. Roman lookouts gave Greek names to the prominent landmarks that they sighted on the coast of southern Sri Lanka. There was a Jovis promontory, a Solus harbour, and the city of the Dionysi, or Bacchus city. Direct sailings to Sri Lanka gave Roman captains the opportunity to follow Indian trade routes further east to reach markets in the Ganges and explore the Bay of Bengal. These contacts are confirmed by the Greek tutor Dionysius Perigetes, who wrote a brief account of world geography for his students. Dionysius describes the Indian Ocean, but comments, "Commerce is not my inherited livelihood. I have not visited the Ganges, like those people who cross the ocean and risk their lives for enormous wealth." Confirmation of this trade also comes from a Roman shipwreck recently located on the southern coast of Sri Lanka. The wreck is currently being investigated by the Institute of Nautical Archaeology at Texas A&M University. The remains include a mound of corroded metal consisting of iron and copper bars, glass ingots, and amphora pottery fragments. This is further evidence that contact between the Sinhalese and Rome had a significant impact on international trade and the commercial reach of the Roman Empire. But it was not the opportunity for commercial profit that ultimately captured the attention of the Roman elite. It was the idea that distant countries of comparable wealth and sophistication to Rome could maintain accountable monarchies and depose rulers by means of non-compliance. This might have been the real legacy of the Sinhalese embassy sent to the Emperor Claudius. For more detailed information, see my books, The Roman Empire and the Indian Ocean, and The Roman Empire and the Silk Routes. Follow the link below this video. Thank you.